Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our attendees joining us today for this latest Data Science Central webinar. This is Bill Voorhees, your host. I'm the Editorial Director with Data Science Central and also Chief Data Scientist for Data Magnum. So I'd like to start off our event today by thanking Alteryx for sponsoring today's event. Alteryx is a longtime supporter of the Data Science Central community, and we're honored to have them sponsoring our event today. Now, today's webinar is entitled New Trends in Data Prep and Blend, and that'll be presented by Alteryx. But before we begin, I'd like to briefly review the format for today's webinar. Today's event will be an hour long. We have one presenter who I'll introduce in just a minute. There'll be 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A following the presentation, and today's event is being recorded and will be available on datasciencecentral.com later this afternoon following today's live event. Now, I'd also like to encourage our attendees to provide questions throughout the presentation, because we'll be reviewing and presenting them on your behalf during the Q&A portion of today's event. Well, I'm very pleased to introduce today's speaker, Mindy Grissom with Alteryx. Mindy's a product evangelist at Alteryx with a passion to help people find better ways to analyze data. Now, over the past 7 years, she's worked to create valuable products across healthcare, tech, telecom, and CPG, and earned an MBA from the University of Washington. So, Mindy, thanks for being with us today. We're looking forward to your presentation. Now, data blending is the foundation for all analysis, which is why analysts reside in every department and within every industry. Yet not all analysts are driving the business forward with game-changing business insights. Instead, you're stuck spending 80% of the day prepping data for basic analysis and reports. So in today's Data Science Central webinar, you'll learn how to make the fundamental shift in the amount of time you spend prepping and blending data so that you're freed up to deliver results that propel your career and your business forward. You'll learn how to reduce the amount of time you spend munging, prepping, cleaning your data for basic analysis, gain more time to drive better business outcomes by providing insights rather than just reports, because antiquated approaches aren't built for advanced capabilities, and put the power of advanced analytics into your hands, predictive, prescriptive, and geospatial, analysis that you can answer complex questions with confidence and ease. So, Mindy, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can begin just as soon as you're ready to go.
Excellent. Thanks, Bill. Now, you guys know a little bit about me and what we're here to talk about today, but throughout the webinar, we'll ask you guys a couple of questions so we can learn a little bit more about you. That first question is, I want to know more about what solutions you are currently using to analyze your data. So are you using spreadsheets like Excel, Domo, BI, visualization vendors, ETL type of solutions, or maybe just a data prep software, that's really exclusive to that? So we'll give you guys just a few seconds to go ahead and answer that question. Again, just want to get a little bit more information about you guys before we continue on. So I think we've got quite a few of you who've answered, so let's go ahead and jump on to see what those results look like. So the majority of you guys, as I had kind of expected, are using spreadsheets, and that's excellent. I think you guys are going to get a lot of value out of this, the rest of you as well, too. So with BI visualization and ETL, this is the kind of the mix that I had anticipated. So let's jump on in and talk about the reality of data analytics today. It's really complex, right? There's a lot of challenges in our organizations. In our lines of business, we're struggling to find and manipulate data so that it can be visualized. In fact, IDC recently did a survey where they were talking to data analysts and leaders, and they asked how much time was spent searching for the right data asset. And analysts reported spending close to 40% of their time just trying to track down the right data that they need to use. To further compound this problem, only 6% of organizations have their data in one place. And this is obviously a big deal when we're using more than 5 sources in any analysis. That's coming from spreadsheets, cloud applications, social media, data warehouses, right? So that's a lot of sources that we need to go track down. Putting this all together, as you guys are very well aware with your Excel spreadsheets, this is causing a lot of inefficiencies, whether that's not knowing what someone else is doing in the organization, so you've created multiple different spreadsheets that basically do the same thing, but they might not have the same numbers. Or, you just do your weekly report, and every week you're going to have to redo it in your spreadsheet. This has led to $60 billion of inefficiencies in North America alone. And then when we finally get to move into some high value of creating models and getting those out, right, to move our organizations forward, only 13% of those models are getting deployed every time. So we know that this is a complex situation, and it's only compounded by problems with our solutions. So let's look at a day in the life of an analyst like ourselves. Now, while we go through this, I want you to note anything that sounds like you and anything you wish you could change. All right, so before sunrise, we are scrolling through our work emails from our phone. We're catching up on anything we might have missed. And yep, that includes the request for last month's numbers in the 10 a.m. meeting. Well, I guess that means it's time to grab coffee and get out the door. Now, I hope your commute is a bit shorter than mine. But as we make it into work, we are arriving earlier than most people, and we are playing the role of data scavenger. We know we need several different reports to make this happen by 10 a.m., but we need a special SQL report that's going to require the use of Bob. However, Bob doesn't get in for a while, and so we're just going to have to continue without it and add it once Bob arrives. So we might as well go fill up on that second cup of coffee for a long morning. All right, so Bob got in at around 9 a.m., and of course we were stalking his desk to get that report. So we finally have all of our data, but Bob's data is ugly. I mean, it was a fast pull from SQL, and we know that this is going to take us a lot of time that we just don't have. We get a momentary rush of success by sending off our report 3 minutes before the meeting. We combined all of our data. We made Bob's ugly report look pretty. We got our links to work across our workbooks. We got the right amount of rows. We created 10 brilliant charts that our boss could then present. We feel victorious, right, because it's delivered on time. So as the meeting is starting, it's now time for us to start the work that we should have started hours ago, starting with that weekly status report that we know we need to deliver later on. Of course, throughout the meeting, we're bombarded with emails and IMs about our report that we delivered at 10 a.m. They have questions about that report, and we just have that foreboding sense that more work is going to come out of this meeting. So let's go ahead and grab that third cup of coffee and say hello to a few of our favorite colleagues as we walk to the kitchen. It's now noon, and the meeting has ended, and there is a new report, as you had imagined, a new request for you from the demand gen team. They need specific questions answered. Number of leads. Which activities are leading to the greatest ROI? Where are these customers located? Can we put a quality metric on the leads in our funnel? As you look at this long list of things you need to answer, you know that it's lunch at your desk again. As you shovel that sandwich in, you start scrubbing all of the different data sources that you have. Now, luckily, this meeting came from the top, so access to the different databases and reports wasn't a big struggle. We didn't have to waste as much time trying to find our data. But that's a lot of data that we got to scrub and put together. So many different data sources and different formats. As it rolls around to the afternoon, we've started putting our data together, but we've found an error in Jill's spreadsheet. And since spreadsheets can be hard to certify as a trusted source, we need to go find Jill and discuss the problem. As we're doing so, we create pivot charts and tables to see our data and where the differences are. We finally agree on a new set of data, but you might as well stop by for that fourth cup of coffee and a snack before re-importing that fixed data. It's late afternoon, and we're feeling pretty good, right? We're able to match our data to the marketing activities. We're creating charts to communicate our insights. But now we need to create weights for each marketing activity so that we can determine our ROI. And that way we'll know which activities the demand gen should continue to use for their activities. We also need to get a quality metric to apply to our future leads so we know how to classify them within our funnels. Now, we know what we need, but Joe can do it a lot easier. So we send off our analysis to Joe, but then we get a reply saying it's going to take 48 hours due to other requests and projects. Ugh, the dreaded queue. I bet you guys can all relate to that one. All right, it's now 6:41, and we are just getting home to a cold dinner, and as we, again, start to eat, we're continuing to answer emails from our boss. But we put it down for a minute. It's time to help kids with some homework, tuck them into bed, and then we're turning back on the laptop to finish work. With an underlying sense of dread, we know we can do more. We know we need to do more, but who can we ask for help? We have a lot of questions, but who can we ask? There's an error now, and right, it's late, and now we find this error. It's the midnight hour. There's additional rows in our data set, and we need to relink our data. We have to recreate our charts. We have to put them into PowerPoint, email new results, update our dashboards. Finally, it's just time to shut it down for the night. Now, while you sleep, you are dreaming that you wish you had more time during the day. You wish you could stop treading water at work. Keep thinking about that promotion that you really want, but how are you supposed to advance your skills? With what time? You'd love to do what Joe does. Finally, you just wish you'd win the lottery. All right, so throughout that whole thing, there was a lot of inefficiencies, but we're going to go through the top 5 throughout. We've bundled a lot of these together, and we think we've got the top 5 inefficiencies that we've talked to from a lot of customers. So for the first one, we call it the data prep time suck. So your boss doesn't realize how long data prep is currently taking you. 80% of your analysis time is spent on data prep, which leaves very little time to analyze your data. We also need to factor in time to do things like create charts. To make up for this, and to meet those very important deadlines, we're getting in early, we're working through lunch, we're staying late, we're finishing work at home. Now, often this is because we need to maintain status quo because we're barely keeping our head above water as it is. We know how to do things as they are. We are going to continue doing this because, it's better than nothing, right? There's no time to learn anything new. We don't really trust anything else. The next big inefficiency and big problem is too much data. So data is abundant, right? We have all these different data sources that we're combining together. In fact, as humans, we are generating 2.5 quintillion bytes of data a day. A day. Now that's an insane amount. Of course, it's not like this all comes in one lovely standard format that allows us to just put these together very simply. It's in different formats, they're in different locations, there's random errors depending on where it came from, they just don't fit together. The list goes on and on. And remember, 60% of our analysis include 5 or more sources. However, we often need even more data than we think we need. For example, if we're only using our own internal data, we're going to be very internally biased. So overlaying external data sources can provide an extra value add layer to provide a complete picture for us. Now, this is all compounded by the limitations of our current solutions. So for my friends out there who are spreadsheet users, you know that there's that row limit of just over 1 million rows. It's also really hard to trace your steps in a lot of the different solutions. This causes a cyclical error nightmare or untrusted data to proliferate throughout our organization. Some of our solutions limit what data we can connect to, and I'm not talking about some obscure data source. Don't these people realize that we need to connect everything right now? These other solutions tend to limit formats for our end results. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not always just putting into PowerPoint. Sometimes you got to write back to the database, and it actually doesn't go into showing anything, right? It just goes back. Maybe we do need to create a PowerPoint, or maybe it does need to go into a spreadsheet. Or a lot of organizations have Tableau and Click in their organization, so they need all the options to be able to share their insights. All too often, these solutions are good at one piece of the puzzle, and they're generally really, really good at it. But solving one piece of the 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle isn't ideal. However, we continue to chant our own mantra of, if it ain't broke, right? The way that we're working right now is better, we think, because we know what we're doing. We don't have time to learn something new. We don't have time to think through a different solution, so we're doing what's good enough for the moment. Our solution limitations go beyond our own needs. We have to involve others, right? Whether that's to pull a report to get it into a format that our current solution will allow us to analyze, or the need to send off to someone to write code or perform advanced analytics on. Now, these solutions are generally sold under the guise of collaboration, but generally it just ends up being more work, more time, and more interruptions. Finally, all of these above-mentioned issues means we are just barely surviving. We are not thriving, whether that's at work or in just our day-to-day lives. We're barely keeping up with the day-to-day standard requests that we need to fill. But mix in those ad hoc exec requests, and there is just too much to do. Oftentimes, we have questions on how to solve the problem, but who do we ask? Sometimes we can feel like an imposter, since we are expected to solve the problem, but let's face it, we don't always have the answers. Maybe there's someone in the organization that we trust or a mentor that we have externally, but they're busy too. Finally, most of us are here today because we want to do things better. That could be because you want to advance your career. Maybe you want to provide insights to your organization instead of just providing those reports. Have you thought about maybe taking a coding course? Maybe you want to learn more about advanced analytics. But when do you do that? I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day, and we need to sleep and eat, have fun, have a life. Aren't we tired of just surviving? Shouldn't we be thriving? So with that, here's our second poll question for you guys to answer. Which of those 5 issues do you most relate with? Now, you may relate with multiples of those, but I want you to pick your top one. So whether that's the data prep time suck of spending too much time on just cleansing and preparing your data, maybe it's dealing with too much data, maybe it's the solution limitations that you have with your current solution. Maybe it's the need to have others help you in your analysis, whether that's advanced analytics, location intelligence, or maybe it's you just feel like you're just surviving at work and that you're not thriving. So I see you guys are filling in some answers, and we'll give you just another couple seconds so we can finalize that poll. I think we see why everyone is here. Let's go ahead and jump to those answers. Yeah, so the data prep time suck, right? We all want more time, and I think that feeds into that surviving and not thriving at work. So for our second answer, kind of what I imagined from you guys, but I'm glad to hear that. So let's look at the what if. What if we reimagined everything? What if we flipped the script? What if we reimagined everything we thought we knew? Instead of spending 80% of our time instead of spending 80% of our time on data prep, we could spend 80% of our time deriving insights, not reports. What if we had time to laugh with our colleagues at lunch and get home to have a hot meal with our families? Or maybe take up a new hobby, or just advance our skills. Alteryx is the analytics world reimagined. We take a different approach to analytics. As a subscription-based software analytics platform, you can easily prepare, blend, and analyze your data from a multitude of sources and benefit from better data-driven decisions. So let's look at how this is different from other solutions. First one is our repeatable workflows. You can put that weekly status report on cruise control by building once and then automatically repeating. Time savings alone using repeatability can transform both your work life and your personal life. We have code-free and code-friendly capabilities. Don't know how to code? Use the code-free drag-and-drop advanced analytics to identify relationships between your variables or build models. Need specific code for your organization? Well, go find Joe and actually collaborate with him, and then package that code easily into your workflows for use today and forever. It's flexible and diverse. We support nearly every data source, report format, and visualization that your business needs. You can enrich and extend your analysis. We offer tools, APIs, and additional external data sets so you can take your ordinary analysis to extraordinary. Definitely our hallmark is our ease of use. You can maximize your return with an easy-to-learn and use solution so you're getting to insights, not just reports, in minutes and not weeks. And you have the ability to see it every step. Let Alteryx be your guide. From the moment you drop your data into Alteryx and through every change, manipulation, and step you make, you can instantly validate that change to help guide your analysis or ask more questions along the way. Alteryx allows us to break free to the other side where we aren't just treading water. What took us days to analyze could take us hours or minutes. Instead of guessing what we've done, we can drag, drop, and see our way to insights. We can build that status report once and then put it on cruise control, so we're spending our time on more valuable things. More data actually equals more insights for us. Bring on the quintillion amounts of data. With more data comes more insights, and we can go beyond our internal focus so we aren't biasing our view of new markets, or we can gain a deeper understanding of our customers. We can unlock location insights that allow us to target with precision and maximize our ROI. Cut the strings and break free of the limitations that our current solutions use to hold us down. Row limits are no longer a thing, and we can see every step that we make along the way. Every change can be instantly validated, so we aren't having a headache tracing our steps. Okay, so I'm being a little facetious here, but you can be the Oprah of insights, right? You get a report, and you get a report. You're able to provide everyone the report and format that they need so you're able to communicate your insights effectively, no matter who you're trying to talk to. Maybe you have multiple visualization providers. It's no problem. PowerPoint, Excel, back to your database, do it all with a simple drag and drop. The one solution on the market that lets you solve the whole jigsaw puzzle and not just one piece. All right, with our code-free advanced analytics, you can take your analysis and career to the next level without having to get that advanced degree. Whether you're creating models or uncovering location intelligence that's already hidden in your data, you can do advanced analytics yourself, so you don't have to send off your analysis and wait 48 hours for Joe. Finally, all along the way, you get the support that you need to not feel like that imposter. People want to support you. They want to give you new ideas and help you understand advanced analytics through our very powerful community. I'm always amazed on how quickly people respond to different questions that are on our community. Every day, badass analysts are arising, and I think you guys are going to be one of them. They're breaking through to the other side and experiencing a new way to work, live, and thrive. So let's look at two specific examples that we actually have. One of my favorite stories is from one individual at Home Depot. Now, in case you aren't familiar, Home Depot has over 2,000 hardware stores with somewhere around 160,000 products. Now, our analyst was tasked with looking at the product data at the stores to optimize which stores should carry which products, because every store cannot hold every single product, nor would you want a snow blower in Florida, right? Now, this was a monumental task since there's roughly 16 billion different combinations of stores and products. At the time, he was only able to look at 5% of the merchandise at the stores, and doing so would take 2 weeks' time. Now, if anything happened during that time, like let's just say a power outage, it would reset that time frame, and he'd have to start the clock over for 2 weeks. Imagine the frustration that he felt. But he chose to find a better way, and he chose Alteryx. With Alteryx, he was able to analyze 100% of the products across the stores, and he can run this 10 times a day. So from 2 weeks and 5% to maybe around an hour and 100% of those products. This led to Home Depot realizing a 2 to 4% top-line revenue gain, which is great for the company, but it also saved tens of thousands of hours for the employees, allowing them to do more important things with their time. Another great story is from our analyst at Western Union. As you can imagine, the financial industry has tons of regulatory requirements, and finding fraud is a big area of focus. Fraud at Western Union can take on many different shapes, whether it's emulating a terminal or using social engineering where someone calls and pretends to be someone else and is in need of money. Yes, this can even include those lovely scams that we've all received emails about from the prince of a country who's asking for money. Now, Western Union was processing about 31 transactions per second. So you can imagine the amount of data there was available to analyze and how imperative it was to analyze it quickly to catch fraud. This analyst had 36 database inputs, equating to about 63 gigs of data needing to be analyzed to detect that fraud. Now, they were struggling to keep up because they were using Excel, Access, and MySQL. For data preparation alone was taking about 100 hours a month. As you can imagine, Excel would crash, Access would freeze, MySQL just wasn't powerful enough to handle it. So the analysts at Western Union turned to Alteryx. They learned the product basics in about 30 minutes, and they built their first workflow in under 2 hours. That same exact workflow that they built was that same process, which took 100 hours before. That same process in Alteryx took 4 minutes. They saved 1,200 hours a year in one workflow in under 2 hours. With all that time savings, they were able to expand their fraud analysis time and develop more sophisticated techniques with Alteryx to expand fraud and detection analysis within their organization. So these are some great stories of how just one analyst can make a huge difference to an organization as well as to their own lives. So my final poll question for you guys before we jump in to actually looking at the product is, what is actually prompting you to look for better ways to analyze data? Again, you might feel like, well, all of these apply, but I want you to choose your top one. Is it a better work-life balance? Are you really hoping for that promotion or just advancing your skills where you are? Maybe you want a new job outside of where you're currently working. Or maybe you just need more time while you're at work to just get things done while you're at work. Again, back to that surviving and not thriving at work. We'll give you guys just a couple more seconds to tally up these answers. It looks like, go ahead and close that now. It looks like you guys are all wanting to get that promotion, and I think that that's awesome. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there, right? That we all want to do better. We want to all advance where we are, and I think that we have the ability to do so with the tools that we have today. So with that, I'm actually going to go ahead and jump into a demo of our Alteryx Designer product. You should now be able to see my screen, which should be showing you our Alteryx Designer product. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of where things are located so you kind of get an idea. Up top, we have what is called our tool palette. This is where you'll find all of the different drag and drop tools that Alteryx provides. By clicking on the tabs, you can see that they're all color-coded to give you an idea of where they fall in within the different capabilities. So if you wanted to add data, it would be an in and out tool. When you want to prepare your data, right, you have your blue tools. Your join, when you want to blend your data together, is purple, and so on and so forth down the line. Now, on our left-hand side, when we have a tool, this is what we call the configuration pane. From here, what we can do is we'll actually configure the tool to do the capability that we need to do. We'll look at that a little bit more as we go throughout our process. Down below, we have what's called our results grid. Now I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger so you can see. But what this does is it will actually allow me to see my data, and at points we can actually explore with our data by clicking on the different columns. This large white space, well, normally it's white space. I've filled it up with a workflow. But as of right now, we have this large white space is what you work on. And it's pretty unlimited, right? It's a large space, and we call it our canvas. That allows you to just simply click, drag, and drop any tool onto the canvas to continue with your analysis. We also have in our top right corner a very powerful search. So we'll get into that in just a little bit so you can see how that works. All right. So with our inputs, right, let's say we can have as many data sources as basically our heart can desire or that our boss demands of us. So for our inputs, I have 3 different inputs here. What I always suggest for everyone is to drop a browse tool. This is that seeing at every step that we had talked about. From here, as you can see, I have an Excel file. So I want to look at my data in just a little bit deeper way. Right? So I can click on these columns, and it will change to give me more information about my data. Now, my data here is all in V strings, so it's not quite as exciting. But let's go back to that data input tool. As you can see, we offer a variety of different connections for you. Now, I've put different types of sources in here, but as you can see, we have all sorts of different databases, as well as a variety of different file types that you can also connect to. Basically, if you have access to the data, you can connect it within Alteryx. All right, let's start at the very top. So we have some customer information from our CRM database. Let's take a closer look at that using our browse tool. If I click on this name column, I can see that there's only 10 unique values. What that tells me is that my data is all vertically aligned. Well, I would like to have, pull this up just a little bit, I would like each customer ID to have its own line instead. But maybe I don't know how to do that in Alteryx. So I can go up to our search function. When I type in horizontal, it's going to search across our tools, our help documentation online, as well as our community. Now, if I didn't know what the Crosstab tool was, I could hit the example button. This will open up examples for me so I can actually explore to see how this tool works and if this fits my needs. Also, when I'm here, Maybe I don't know where to find this, and I couldn't tell that this transform is orange. I can simply click and drag from our help or from our search bar and drag it onto the canvas. All right, so we know we need the Crosstab tool. I'm going to go ahead and click on this area. I'm going to go ahead and click on our tool so we can see our data. As we see, it is all vertically aligned. So what I want to do is I want to group by my customer ID because I want all of my customer IDs to have their own line. The rest, I want my headers to be name and value. Those were my other ones, right? Now by clicking on this exit part of the tool, right, you can see the data going in, you configure the tool, and you can see the data going out. These are very important. So now I can see that, yes, my data down here, down below, we can see that every customer ID has its own line. So it's a lot easier to analyze. One thing that I see is a customer segment. Well, what I want to do is I don't actually care about my corporate customers. I want to see my home office customers. So let's go ahead and drag a filter tool down. Our filter tools are on our data preparation tools. From here, I can create a basic filter or a custom filter. So a basic filter just allows me to choose a column, any column, and then add, maybe I want it to equal a certain thing or doesn't equal, right? I want everything besides my corporate. So anything that doesn't equal corporate will be false, will be true. So let's test that theory. When I click on the false part of my tools, I can see that my customer segment should all say corporate. And down below, we can see that that is accurate. My true of my filter tool should show that I have different types, and that is also accurate, right? I have my small business and my consumer. All right, I feel pretty good about where my customers are at, so let's go down to the next set of data that I have. That's my transactions. Now, this could come from a cloud source. This could come from a database, right? The options are pretty endless there. Again, using that browse tool, I can now click on the different columns and see my data as it's changing. So if I have numerical data, which is what this is, it's going to give me the statistical distribution. So I can see that for unit price, we have the minimum of 99 cents, and we have a really expensive product at around $6,800. So again, I don't have to do anything except for drag a tool down, and I can get some insights into my data. Now when I'm looking at my data, I'm actually going to see I don't have a total spend in my data. So let's go ahead and drag a formula tool down. Formula tool is very similar to Excel, where you could do some very simple calculations like X times X, right? Column times column. Or we could do other things like create if statements. There's a lot of different opportunities available for you. You can do a lot of mathematical functions. Again, the endless opportunities are available to you. So I'm going to create a new column called spend and just do my unit price, right? This column times my quantity ordered. Great. Now by looking at the exit part of my data, I can see I do have a new column that's called spend. Now this is a lot of data to look at and kind of frustrating, and I don't need all that much. So let's go ahead and summarize that data, similar to what you do in creating a pivot table. Using the Summarize tool, I can group by my customer ID, and then I can summarize my spend and count my spend. That way I know how much every customer is spending and how many transactions that is for every customer. Now, something that might be interesting is to, again, drop a browse tool, and I can click on the spend, and I can see that the average spend is about $27,000. Well, that seems kind of high, but remember, we have a lot of different customers in our transactions here. All right, I feel pretty good about this data set as well, so let's go ahead and join our data sets together. We want to match our customers with the transactions. So what we're going to do is drop a join tool. Our join tool allows me to choose which columns are going to match to each other. I could choose a variety of different ones. Now, we have the customer ID, which is the same unique identifier. If I didn't have that, we do have other join tools available that will allow us to connect our data without a unique identifier. So from here, we can see the 3 different outputs of our blended data. So for the L, this would be any customers that didn't match any transactions. Well, that's good. And we do, though, have some transactions that don't match customers. And that actually makes sense, right? We took out our corporate customers. So my bet is that these customers are all corporate customers. Great. So we know that we now have 1,700 records from non-corporate customers that we can continue to analyze. All right. One thing, the next step that we want to take is to look at our store addresses. So that's where we kind of started off with. This is just an Excel file. However, it's in a really bad shape. As you can see, this is very red and very ugly. Our address data is all in one cell. So let's go ahead and split that out using a text parsing tool. Our text parse tool allows you to choose any column that you want to split into different columns. Now, you can use one delimiter or multiples. This one, as we can see, is just using the pipe. So we're going to go ahead and just use the pipe as our delimiter. And I know that there's 4 columns. Now, as you can see, my data on the way out, it didn't touch the address column. It left that alone. But it did create 4 additional columns for me. However, this data still is not very pretty. As I hover over this, we can see that this cell has leading spaces. And so does this one. So let's go ahead and drop a data cleansing tool down. What our data cleansing tool will allow us to do is eliminate those nulls, white spaces, do case modifications, punctuation removal, all within the tool. So we're doing it in an instant. I could choose all the fields and cleanse them all at once, or I could just choose certain ones. We're going to go ahead and deselect some of them. And so again, on our way out, we can now see that these are now green because they no longer have those leading or trailing white spaces. All right, well, again, I don't want this address column anymore. It's annoying me, right? It's ugly. I don't want it in there. So I choose a select tool. The select tool is going to allow me to choose which columns I want to continue on to use in my analysis. I can also reclassify my data to a different data type. And I can also rename the columns, again, making it more friendly, easier for me to understand. Now, something that's interesting about this data set is that I have latitude and longitude on here. So let's go ahead and turn that into spatial data points. By using our create points, which is within our spatial set of tools, I can create this to be points on a map. Well, let's take that one step further and actually create a trade area. Now, if you have our external data source, what that empowers you to do is use drive time analysis. So I'm actually going to specify that I want to create an area of 15 minutes drive time using the off-peak TomTom traffic data around my store. Now let's go ahead and take a look at that just a little bit closer. So you can see that now these buffers are around my store locations, and that shows the drive time distance. So I could do further analysis on that, but that's not really the case of what we're looking at today. What we want to do is see, combine this data with our customers and transactions. So let's go ahead and do another join tool. And this is going to be similar to a VLOOKUP, where I'm taking data from our join over here, and I'm going to be referencing it basically against our store location data. So I'm going to use my unique identifier as store number and store ID. So again, looking at our L and R, let's see if anything dropped out. Well, that's good. All of our customers are shopping at stores, so there's nothing rogue there. and all of our stores have sales. So that seems to be accurate. All right. Now, when I'm looking at our join data, a column that I see is that we have a responder tab. What this responder is are people actually looking at are they responding to our marketing campaign? Yes or no? Well, I want to know what variables are actually going to affect that. So let's go ahead and look at our predictive suite of tools. We have an entire suite of advanced analytics that are just drag and drop. So I know that logistic regression will help me analyze different variables against that responder tab. So let's go ahead. I could give this model a name. My target variable is going to be my responder, yes or no. And then I could choose as many different variables that I want to analyze against that yes or no. And then what Alteryx allows me to do is I can see what that report looks like in an easy way. It's telling me that my model right now is at 76% accuracy. Okay, maybe it's not the best, but let's go ahead and just score that against our data. So what this score tool will allow me to do is basically train my model against my current data. So I can see, is this actually going to predict accurately what people do depending on those different variables. So if I go ahead and, again, using that exit point of my data, scroll all the way to the right, I can see that my model is predicting yes or no, and with what percentage. All right, so from here, there's a variety of different things I could do. I could keep analyzing my data, but maybe I just want to explore my data further. Maybe I need to create an interactive dashboard. Maybe it needs to go into a visualization vendor. Maybe I need to write back to my database. Now, as you can see, this has a red exclamation point, and that's by design, to show you along the way if there's any issues. You can identify very quickly where there's a problem and go fix that problem. By writing back to a file, it's the same types of files and databases, the options that you had of inputting your data. Maybe I want to create different PowerPoint charts. By doing so, I can, let's use this browse tool just so I can show you a little bit easier. I'm actually going to pop this out real fast. Maybe I needed to create a chart showing, now this is not the best chart, but let's say we're showing a chart of our customer segment and their total sales. By doing this, I had one click of a button that allowed me then to do it for every single store. So there's store 100, 101, 102, and so forth. And now I can put that right into PowerPoint. Any changes I make, all I have to do is hit the run button, and I can make those changes again. So with that, that was just a very brief overview of some of the capabilities that are available within Alteryx. But I think now I'm going to turn it over to questions. I can stop sharing. Sorry. And I will turn it back over to Bill for questions.
Well, Mindy, thank you so much for that excellent presentation. And while we get started on today's Q&A session, I want to thank the audience for their participation. I had a lot of questions that have come in, and we'll do our best to get through all of them in the time remaining. And so during this Q&A session, I'll leave up this screen with contact information for Mindy in case you'd like to get a hold of her following today's event. So let's get started. So Mindy, a lot of us, and certainly a lot of people in the audience, are very familiar with Excel. How do you help current Excel users quickly get into using Alteryx?
Yes, so we actually have an Excel to Alteryx guide available on our website that you can see basically, okay, if I do a VLOOKUP, how do I do that in Alteryx? So we do have a one-for-one guide available on our website. Again, we also have some great resources on our community. So we do have some free training that you can take, again, very pointed towards our Excel users, as well as if you just search within our community, if you said, hey, again, VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP, if you type those into our community, which is just community.alteryx.com, you'd be able to quickly see what others are doing and even download some of their workflows and see how people have solved those similar challenges.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you for that explanation. Now, a lot of us who have used Excel for cleaning know that we can run into size limitations. Are there any size limitations within Alteryx?
So, not really. The reason I say not really is it is a software solution and it is on your laptop, so sometimes people can run into some limitations of just the power of their laptop. However, one of our founders, Ned, did run 1 trillion records a couple of years ago, and that was a couple of years ago. So, he was just doing it to prove that it's possible. We also have in-database tools. So let's say you have your biggest data sets, right, your big data. We actually have in-database tools that will allow you to harness the power of the cloud to process that data. But as you saw with those couple of examples, 63 gigs of data being processed by an analyst without problems, and they ran that in 4 minutes. So, I won't say that it's unlimited. There's always a limitation somewhere, but there's always a way around limitations as well.
Okay, well, 1 trillion trillion records sounds like it does the job. So, data sources. Is there a limit to how many data sources I can connect simultaneously in Alteryx?
No, there is not a limit on to how many you can connect to. Again, it's dependent on if you have access to the data. If you have access to the data, you can connect it, and you can connect to as many different data sources as your little analysis wants to connect to. We have 70 plus native data connections. So that's the ones that we have tried, true, trusted. We have multiple others just connecting, that aren't as tried and true, but they all still work, and we have APIs and things like that. So there's no limitation on how many different data sources you can actually analyze at one time.
Okay, and you already mentioned that you process in database, so we're not actually moving this data, are we?
I'm a little confused by that question.
Oh, when so much data is involved, many times the audience understands that things are slow if you try and extract that data and bring it into your machine, as opposed to doing a lot of this processing in database. And you said you had in database capabilities.
Correct. Yes. So yes, you would not have to extract that on the largest of your data sets.
Terrific. Okay. And then the audience also interested is in whether or not Alteryx can connect to live data sets. And let me expand that a little bit by asking, is it just static? Is it live? Could I even attach, for example, to a streaming data set?
So we do have people we can connect to live data sets. I would want to connect you with one of our SEs that can get a little bit deeper and actually show you that in just way more detail. But yes, you can connect to live data sets. It does not have to be static. For streaming, I'm not 100% sure I would be able to answer that accurately, so I would want to take that offline.
Okay, fair enough. Now, there's a really good question from the audience here, and you've done a lot of manipulation in your demo to the data and combined a number of different sources. Does Alteryx provide some sort of data dictionary or metadata repository to help the teams explore the different data sources and understand their provenance?
Yes, so Alteryx does. It's a separate product called Alteryx Connect that you can load up with all of the different, right, so everyone is on the same page. We kind of call it the first mile of analytics, and that really helps to solve the problem of data discovery, right, because then you see everything that's available to you at any given point in time. But this is generally led more as an IT initiative. If anyone out there is on IT, this is a great opportunity or if you want this within your organization, it's a great opportunity for all of your data to go into one repository. Then you can search for all of your different analytic assets. So it's not just data. It could be a workflow. It could be a report, and those types of things. The same thing as you would have that data dictionary that would allow you to, within your organization, define, because we all know that the word client can mean things across different parts of the organization. And so using that data dictionary within your organization and defining that particularly within yourselves can be very powerful. But within Alteryx, like Alteryx Designer, there isn't one just dictionary for you that would align for your organization, if that makes sense.
Understand, but that separate product would certainly help. Now, a lot of us are using SQL for extract, and the audience is particularly concerned to know if you support Spark SQL and Hive SQL.
Yes, so we have Spark tools, and we also have, I know that we do connect to Hive. I don't think that there's a specific tool for that one, but Spark, we just released several new tools last year, actually. And those have been met with rave reviews, and people have been just super excited about that. Again, allowing them to connect, run in DB, those types of things. So yes.
Well, terrific. Now, some of us also use RScript for extract. Do you support RScript extracting?
We sure do. So we have R and Python tools. So those are our code-friendly tools that will allow you to code and pull down from R and connect to your private repositories, all sorts of things you can do. Really, the sky is limitless with R and Python tools.
Right. Okay. Thanks very much for that clarification. Now, you talked about working with Tableau and Qlik and presumably other visualization vendors. How exactly does that work? How do you get the data out? How do you get the data into the Viz program?
Sure. So whether this is, your data prep and blend and analyze solution, and then you're putting this into a visualization to let visualization do what it does best, which is to communicate some of those insights, or whether you are taking data out of a Tableau to then do some further analysis. We support it on both ends. So it will depend, right? We do the TDE files. I'm blanking on exactly the file types, but all of the main Tableau and Qlik and Power BI file types you can bring in. So you can analyze that data. The best part is that what it does is, instead of putting that data just straight into Tableau or Qlik, which can then make it hang, you can do all of the really heavy lifting with Alteryx, and then Tableau and Qlik does what it does best, and it can just show the insights that you've now analyzed and taken so much time to do throughout your time. So we do it on the input and output side, and we have great partnerships with all of those vendors.
Well, Mindy, thank you. Those were great answers for some very good questions. And for those of you that asked questions today that weren't answered, we'll be sending all the unanswered questions to Mindy and the Alteryx team so they can follow up with you after today's webinar. I have just a few quick announcements. If you'd please mark your calendars for January 22nd, that's our next DSC webinar, which is Data Prep and Automated ML, Better Predictions for Consensus. Also, remember that today's taping will be available for on-demand viewing, and you can see that on the home page of Data Science Central in the Webinar tab located at the top of the page. Also, all of our past webinars are available on demand at datasciencecentral.com, and if you haven't had the opportunity to view them, I encourage you to take a look. They provide some very useful insight into a wide variety of topics of interest to our data science community. Well, that brings today's webinar to a close. I'd like to thank our audience for their attendance, their thoughtful questions, and a special thanks again to Alteryx for their sponsorship, as well as our speaker today, Mindy Grissom, for her insight into today's topic. This is Bill Voorhees. I'm very pleased to have been your host for today's event. I look forward to seeing you all again on January 22nd. Have a great day.